Hello. As you can see, I'm coming from a company which likes magenta. And you can think magenta is the German orange. And in April, I participated in the legal and licensing workshop in Barcelona. And the Free Software Foundation announced that they also have a T-shirt in magenta. And I promised that I will give my next lecture in this T-shirt. So it indeed contains the free freedoms, and it is indeed free software. Good. So please, can anyone take a photo and post it on Twitter with hashtags OW2con and Telecom so that I can prove my wife that I really did this? Good. Now, no more jokes. Let us be seriously, and I think that FOSS compliance is plain sailing. We all know what we have to do to use open source software compliantly. We knew that if we distribute open source software, then we have to list each component of the software. We have to name it together with the name and the release number. We have oh, sorry. Good. Whatever I did. So we have to list the corresponding copyright owners. We have to add the respective license text, the respective disclaimer. Sometimes we have to add some additional files. And for each component which is licensed under a weak or a strong copyleft license, we also have to add a written offer that we will send and distribute the source code. And as, of course, we have to set up a process for serving requests evoked by the last point. If we do so, open source compliance is no big deal. We have to put and to list the components, and we have to add an open source compliance artifact and to combine them into the product. So, if the world is really as simple as I described, then why the hell are we talking about open source compliance so heavily? Let us look at a typical telecom product, the IPTV. And the structure of the IPTV product is this. You have a data center, which is streaming movies. Then you have to have a router, which takes the stream into the set-top box, which translates the signals to the TV. And you have to have a smartphone for steering this setup. And the good message is open source software is everywhere. If we look, if we take a deeper look at the situation, then we see that we have different kind of products. And components. There are components which are not distributed by the product owner, like the TV and the smartphone. And there are distributed products, like the set-top box and the router. And there are products, open source parts, components, which are not distributed. You do not distribute a data center. So, what do we have to do? What is our responsibility? We have, in case of a telecommunication app hosted on a smartphone, we, as a company, as a product owner of IPTV, we have to be consider the compliance focus of the Linux libraries and the telecom application which we distribute. In case of the set-top box and the router, we have to consider the compliance of the Linux kernel, the GNU Linux libraries, which together build the operating systems. We have to consider some standalone applications like the Apache server. And again, we have to consider our app and the libraries which we distribute. And this is, for all these, we have to create these open source compliance artifacts. The bad message is creating these artifacts once is not enough, because our systems require that we update them over the air. So we create CI/CD chains for doing so. And unfortunately, then we have also the process to embed in these chain, which creates the open source compliance artifacts. So the good message, often it is said that it is good, seems to be that in case of a data center, we do not have to distribute anything, and therefore we are safe. Let's have a look at the data center, at a typical data center of IPTV. At the bottom, we have the bare metal. Each bare metal has an operating system, and this operating system is often Linux, a GNU Linux system. On top of these bare metal, we have the virtualization layers. We have two possibilities. We can use OpenStack, or we can use Kubernetes plus Docker. And on top of these virtualization layer, we have the virtual machines. In case of OpenStack, they are really virtual machines having their own operating system delivered by disk images. And in case of Docker, these are link collections into an underlying general operating system. So where's the problem? The problem, we have two problems. One problem is very simple. If you use any AGPL licensed software in a data center, then you have to consider that the AGPL requires that you have to deliver the complete software stack to anyone who has access to the product via the network. It is a very unclear description, unprecise, so there is a bit of danger using AGPL components inside of a data center. With respect to the compliance responsibility, the other point is more important. If your disk image or your Docker container contains any SSH software, and if you give your customer or anyone outside in the network access to such a disk image, a virtual machine or a virtual machine, then he is able to use SCP for downloading the software. And bingo, you have distributed the software. And if you're distributing software, you have to be compliant. So this is the real challenge of large companies. And what do? Products use a mess of FOSS components, and sometimes, I couldn't resist, sorry, sometimes in the form of a mess. Good. But the good message is you are not alone. Whenever you have a problem, you can be sure that others have considered your problem. And in case of the community is very fast, and it is very probably that they already have designed solutions. Here's a map of compliance automation tools. We have tools which are a bit like organizations which deliver services, like OW2con19, or, for example, OpenSUSE Cable. Then we have software which is closed software, the software of Black Duck and Flexera, for example. We have real usable tools like software 360, Fossology, Quartermaster, and we have companies which set up their services based on open source software like WhiteSource or Wind River. And we have even organizations which target a big picture like OpenChain. So this is the world of open source. It is not complete, of course. So please let me just jump into 3 examples as a reference for all the others. At first, we have software 360. This is a system which provides a central hub for software components in an organization. It allows you to trigger and to note the software you are really using. And we have Fossology. There is a workshop in Fossology, I think in the afternoon this night. Fossology is an excellent tool. Fossology does nothing more than finding the copyright statements in a set of products. They did an excellent job. It is really difficult to define the regular expressions for not creating false positives or false negatives. And they are really good. This is an excellent tool for automate the compliance. And we have, of course, SPDX. SPDX tries to be the software package data exchange as an open standard for communicating software bill of material, including components, licenses, and copyrights. And this sounds a bit like the open source compliance artifacts I mentioned in the beginning of my little lecture. So, are we in the paradise? Is everything done? Complex, but already ready? Good. Do we have really a compliance tool chain which can be used by a company, a small or a large company? Let me tell you a little story. I participated in the legal and licensing workshop, and we had 2 workshops where these tools had the chance to introduce themselves. And they did them very successfully, and there was an undertone. They gave the signal, everything is done. Everything is ready, especially SPDX said, we are the best tool of the world. I am, with respect to the complexity of my work and of the products of my company, I'm a bit skeptic. So what can we do? Can I create the next tool, the next better tool? No. Then I would only create the next singer in the chorus of the singer, we are the best. So what do we really need for solving this issue? We must invent a test-driven open source compliance automation. Test-driven method is used in software development very successfully, and in case of compliance is, we need 3 products, 3 virtual products. And our proposal will be to use a very simple product, only consisting of an Hello World app, using 1 BSD library, then a more complex product, also a Hello World app using GTK libraries, up down to the libxml, which is licensed under the MIT, and a very complex product which delivers the complete stack. If you remind the products I introduced in the beginning, then you see that these test cases refer to the complexity of our products. And what do we have to do? In test-driven development, we have also to define our open source compliance artifacts. And what's the reason to do so? Now, these tools can have the chance to prove what they really can. We use the method of test-driven development by comparing the readily prepared and defined solution with the solutions they deliver. And together, we can close the automation gaps systematically. And Deutsche Telekom will support this project. It's called TD Oscar, Test-Driven Open Source Compliance Automation. It is hosted under an open source compliance GitHub organization. And if you think that Deutsche Telekom not only loves Magenta, but words starting with a T, like T-Systems or T-Online or Telekom, then I only can say, honni soit qui mal y pense.